Oh boy, yeah, welcome back everyone. And as I warned you, we were gonna have a lot of action, more superstars here at PNSQC 2023 in Portland, Oregon. The day is getting a little bit better than it was.
A
It
little
was
bit.
rainy and not so, it was good, it was okay. So, um, in these adventures, joining in these conferences, you will have an opportunity to see the keynotes. These main presentations that will open up the mood for the rest of the conference, the day, and close it up, I would say, with the golden sip at the end. And speaking of, I walked into like pretty much like, hey, Carl. And he accepted to come and share the story with Karl Wiegers. Did I pronounce
Mhm.
it well?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, I'm getting good at this. Welcome, Carl. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
It's an honor. And so, because Carl opened the day today with his keynote in this conference, PNSQC 2023, I don't want to get ahead about the keynote. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It was, first of all, for the people in the audience that may not know you, who are you? What's the deal with Carl?
Oh, okay. Well, I've been a consultant for about 27 years. Had my own consulting company called Process Impact, software development and training. And before that, I was actually a research scientist. I started out as a chemist. I have a PhD in
Oh, wow.
organic chemistry.
Uh-huh.
But I've been in software for more than 40 years, and I started programming in college in 1970. So I've done a lot of different things in software as a developer and a software manager, quality and improvement, process improvement specialist as well. And somehow I got involved with
Okay, and we're back.
We're back.
I don't know what happened. Hi, everyone.
You have to love technology.
Yeah, I think, Carl, you have been having quite a bit of these things lately.
Yes, I had some problems this morning, but I think I've got them all straightened out now with my laptop.
Yeah, I hope that we are back. Okay. Yeah, sorry for that, everyone. We had like a hiccup here. The camera is connected to the power, and it was gone. So
Everything looks okay.
yeah, we're back. I'm super happy. I think that there was a power outage in the hotel in general that probably we didn't notice. That happened as well in the morning with the network.
Yeah, we had a network problem last night and today.
And just at the moment of the keynote. So it was super exciting because it wasn't easy to start the show. But
we
sorry,
got
Carl.
through it.
Let's try take two. Who's Carl? Because we were cut off. Sorry.
So I was saying that somehow I got, excuse me, heavily involved with understanding requirements and trying to help organizations get better at how they develop and manage their requirements, because that's pretty much the foundation for everything else we do on a project. So it was something that I started really in the mid 1980s in my own group at Kodak. I worked for Kodak for many years, and we realized that if we did things like identify our key stakeholders and identify representatives to work with and do some modeling and start writing structured requirement specifications, if we did those kinds of things, we got better results than doing whatever we used to do. So that interest in requirements eventually led me to writing a bunch of articles and books on the topic.
Wait, just let me too casually, like
Well,
you make it sound like a walk in the park, like, oh, I walked into a book now that
I think I'll write a book. Well, I wrote my first book in 1996. It was called Creating a Software Engineering Culture.
Okay.
Because I think culture is very important, and it really was a mixture of technical work and management and people things. But then a section of that was on requirements, and I had that interest. And so the next book I wrote was called Software Requirements. It was published in 1999 by Microsoft Press, and it became quite popular. So since then, I've done a second edition and a third edition, and I've done a couple of other books on requirements and quite a few other books, 14 in all.
Wow.
As well. So
that's You make it sound so trivial, like, yeah, only 14 books. And
Well, it's funny. Where do you learn how to write a book? You know, when I wrote my first book, I had no idea what I was doing. It was quite comical. But I learned, and you know, you learn how the editing process works and all of that, and you learn how to write for your audience and how to understand your audience. And the second book went much smoother. And after that, I sort of knew how to write books, and I just kind of wait until I had some content that I said, this might make a book. Or there was a topic where I had an idea. I was like, this might make a book. So
just out of curiosity, do you remember how long it took you, the first book, from idea to here's a printed brick
yeah,
in my
it
hand?
was about 2 years.
Yeah.
Now that was partly because it took me less than that to write it, but it took a year in production with editing and everything. But generally it seems to take about 11 months between idea and having a book in my hand. 11 to 12 months seems to be the average.
I hope to get to that point
Yeah.
one day, but
Well, I'll be happy to give you any suggestions you like. Feel free to get in touch.
thank you. Yeah, because no, mine was, the first one was a very weird experience, 8 years in the making, but you go back and forth, and it's not the main point of your life, your everyday. And I'm always curious because as well, it's been an interesting struggle, but it's great that you right away went to, hey, I'm gonna share what I'm learning. I'm gonna publish it. I'm gonna help people
Right.
with all this. What drove you to that? What made you like decide like, hey, I'm gonna start like giving it back?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I've always liked to teach. When I was in graduate school in chemistry, I did a lot of teaching.
Mm.
And in fact, after graduate school, I was a visiting assistant professor at a university in chemistry for a year. So I've always liked sharing knowledge. And when I started doing things in our group at Kodak to learn how to do software better, I thought some other groups might be interested in our experience. You know, how they tried this, here's what happened, and it was useful. And also about that same time, I was involved with microcomputers, as they were called back then, before there were such things as personal computers.
Cool.
And we were all just learning from them. And every time I'd learn how to do something new, I'd write an article saying, I'll bet other people would also like to know how to do this. And so that turned into giving presentations at conferences, turned into writing more articles and professional articles, and turned into writing books, and just kind of snowballs. So I've always enjoyed just sharing what I've learned with other people, because why should we all have to climb the same painful learning curves? You know, so if there's something we can do to make it easier to climb the learning curve, I think that's a good idea.
And a key component when you mentioned right away, like it took me this effort to learn this. Right away, I'm gonna write an article to help other people learn, make it an easier journey for them. It's great that you were right away thinking on other people, like how can I give back or help the world, and I'm happy that that snowballed into many more endeavors, many more opportunities.
Well, we all know different things. No one's an expert on anything, but we all know little bits of lots of stuff, and we have some domain of knowledge that we know more than average about.
Mhm.
And if you can share that with other people, you know, why not? It's nice to get compensated for it. You know, I'd like to write articles I get paid for. I'd like to get some book royalties once in a while, but because it is a great deal of work to write a book, as you know.
Oh,
But on the other hand, it's rewarding, and it's nice when people appreciate the work you did and say, "Oh, that was helpful to me." There's nothing that means more to me than when someone tells me that they found my work useful.
it's and not only that, because yeah, very well, it's welcome to get some support to bring the bacon, as
Right.
they say here, chase the pork chop, as we say in Mexico. And but at the same time, every time that someone walks into you and say like, hey, you pretty much changed my life, you helped me, something that you did made a difference in my life, and I think that it's a very good enough payment for
It
some of
is.
these
It's
efforts,
certainly
right?
very rewarding to feel like you made a difference in someone's life, or made their work a little bit easier, or showed them something they hadn't thought about before.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are certainly excellent kinds of compliments to get.
And I'm sure that you also get a lot of those in conferences, in events, and all of
Right.
these things. And you mentioned that you have been going to, well, public speaking and going to all of these conferences. How many would you say you have been at by now?
Well, I actually have a complete record of all the presentations I've given.
Cool.
Okay, that's one of those things. It's kind of like traceability data for a software project. It's impossible to reconstruct when you're done. But if you keep track of it as you go along, it's trivial.
You're diligent, and you
Right.
have like
It's just becomes a part of the process. You give a talk, I update my records. So I've given over 660 presentations,
wow,
ranging from 20-minute webinars to 4-day courses and everything in between. So I've got about, I think, 125 or 130 conference presentations and maybe 60 or 70 webinars. So
wow.
it's but now that's since 1991. I've been doing this a long time. Okay.
No, I mean, but it's still, what is it, like 30 something years
Yeah,
now?
about 33 years I've been doing presentations and training and so forth.
But dividing, you're giving 600 and something.
It's about 20 a year, I suppose, on average. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You've been nonstop all those years.
Well, lately I've done quite a few because I wrote several books in the last few years, not all of which I intended to write. But then there was this pandemic.
Oh,
so I had to have something to do while I was at home. So I wrote a book a few years ago called The Thoughtless Design of Everyday Things.
Okay.
There's a classic book on product design called The Design of Everyday Things. And so this is a little twist, the thoughtless design, because I think, and I'll bet you've had this experience too, how many products we encounter in daily life, it could be computer or phone or in your car or in your house, that seemed to be designed by someone who had never used a product like that before. And you wonder, what were you thinking? This is ridiculous. So I wrote this book because I thought about that for a long time. And I have over 200 examples of products. About 3/4 of them are bad examples. And I got input from many other people. And about 1/4 of them are good examples of especially thoughtfully designed products. But I didn't just list them. I drew 70 lessons grouped into 8 categories of design guidelines, design principles. So I like to write that kind of thing.
It's interesting because you don't stay like in your corner, the QA corner, or just software.
No, I've written 14 books. 9 of them are on software development, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those are on requirements. 2 books on consulting, a book on product design, a memoir of life lessons.
Cool.
And a forensic mystery novel.
No way.
That was the most fun I ever had writing. Yeah, I wrote a novel called The Reconstruction, which is what happens when a forensic sculptor rebuilds a face on a skeleton that no one knows who this person might be. And so they might try to rebuild the face to approximate what the person looked like in life so we can see, does anyone recognize this person?
Cool.
So I had a fabulous idea for that. So I tried writing a novel. It was great fun and not a bad book.
Definitely, I'm gonna be taking a look on that. Novels and the mystery novel, right?
Mystery novel, yes.
Yeah, I'm a big sucker for that.
Yes.
And this is amazing because you're branching in all sorts of areas. The pandemic, as you very well said, was an opportunity. Was awful for a lot of people.
A forced opportunity.
we had to get ourselves entertained or productive or do something that was good, and your productivity exploded. It seems like, even as you have a pretty amazing productivity, I have to say.
And I'm retired. I've been retired for 15 years.
Well, that gives you a little bit more.
So I had a little more time. I don't have a job really. So I do these kinds of things once in a while, but and I enjoy them, but it's nice to have the flexibility to do whatever I want, whether that's writing books or not writing a book.
But it's that's another element that I think it's pretty interesting, that you are not here because you have to or you need to.
I'm not building my career.
You're not paying bills. Well, you are, but
I'm paying bills.
It's not for that, I'm guessing. Okay, and we are back.
It's
it seems
magic.
like the hotel is having some things, or it may be even
It's
me.
kind of like how my Wi-Fi was working in the hotel this morning. Here, gone, here, gone.
Yeah, it was not the best experience because it was popping up again. Like you need to sign on again. I just did that
I just
a few
did that. Pay
minutes
attention.
ago.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry for that. Sometimes you don't control the infrastructure and things happen. But yeah, okay, yeah, we are live. I was just checking. So it's really interesting how all these pandemic lockdowns and that you keep pushing. You're here because you want to help people. Because you, what drives you here? Because you don't have a need to.
I don't have a need to get out there or anything.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you're
Well, I'm here.
retired. The bills are kind of
Right,
like
right.
taken care of. Why are
So
you?
I'm here today this week at Pacific Northwest Software Quality Conference for a couple of reasons. For one thing, I only live a little ways from here. I live in Portland.
Okay.
So
that's home for you.
So I didn't have to fly anywhere or spend hours driving. So it's just across town. And Moss Drake, who was the program chair, heard a presentation that I gave based on my new book, which is called Software Requirements Essentials, came out earlier this year. And he heard me do a webinar promoting that and talking about it. And he said, oh, that might make a good keynote. So I started with that 1-hour presentation, and then I adjusted it to talk more about the quality impact of certain requirements practices on projects, which I gave this morning. And then he also said, hey, do you want to do a workshop based on the book? So tomorrow afternoon, I'll do a 4-hour workshop where I'll go through most of the book. It's a fairly short book, and talk about the 20 practices that I think are essential for all teams to perform.
Interesting. So now diving a little bit further into what you are doing here, what was the title of your keynote for the audience?
Quality begins with requirements, something like that.
Something along the lines, because it is weird, and some people like, what is your talk and you don't even remember what is the title? Well,
it's the first time I ever gave it, so it could have been any title. But yes, quality begins with the requirements.
But when you do over 600 talks, it's like, yeah.
There's a lot of different talks.
They start a blend in between one and the other. And so requirements is the core. Mind you, spoiling a little bit what was your keynote and sharing it with the people that could not watch it. Still, it's in the online conference platform. So stay tuned if you want to watch the keynotes. But Karl, what was the keynote about?
Well, requirements are really the foundation for all of the rest of the work that happens on a project. And there are certain actions that people can take that I think contribute very strongly to being successful. One is to understand your business objectives. Why are we even working on this project? Let's make sure we understand what our business problem is, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're going to measure that. And that helps align everyone toward a common objective. It gives us something where we can say, hey, someone proposed this feature. Well, does it align with achieving one of our business objectives? Okay, if not, maybe we don't need it. Okay, so that's an important starting point to lay the foundation for success. And then we have to elicit requirements from various sources. We have to get some requirements. And I think an excellent way to do that is to focus not on the product, the solution that we're building, but to focus first on usage. What do users need to do with the solution? And I find that is a much better way to understand than what functionality do we need to build so users can do those things so we can achieve our business objectives. It all lines up.
Land the requirement adequately from what the user is truly needing.
Right, right. So by understanding how they envision using the product as opposed to what features they tell you they want to see. Two ways to think about it. I prefer the usage-focused approach. We can do a lot of testing on requirements before we have any code to execute. We can do a lot of reviews to remove errors and find things that we're missing.
Wait, what?
Don't
we need an automation for that and have everything built?
No, you just need a brain. You just need a brain. And you need to talk to the right people. And we need to do it iteratively because you don't get it right the first time. And you're not going to get it right the first time.
Almost never.
No. But you'll get better as you do more passes. And I'm also a big proponent of modeling. I really liked the power of drawing diagrams of different kinds to illustrate and communicate requirements knowledge at a higher level of abstraction. Some people just need the big picture, so show them a picture. Some people need the details, so show them the text. So really, it's about communication. Requirements is about communication, not about computing.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of things I talked about, and I called out certain of the 20 practices that I think were very strong contributors to quality.
Yeah, it's and it's a common topic or comment that I have had in these interviews, like, hey, communication. Land well what is being needed, being told by people, what these all of us together here we are trying to build or bring to our audience and user,
Right.
however you want to call it. And that's where I see like it's super important to translate it well and land it into a well-written and understandable common language requirement.
Right.
And you mentioned some of these points that are critical out of the ones that you're going to be teaching tomorrow in the workshop. Do you mind going over the few ones that you think are the biggest, most important out of the 30 points? 20?
20.
20 points.
20 points, yes.
Yeah, walk us through them. Which ones are the most important?
Okay, well, I think the single most important one is the one I just mentioned about understanding usage, understanding what the user needs to do with the solution. But people tend to focus on functionality very naturally, that's what you see. And sometimes we don't focus as much on quality characteristics of the product. So we also need to understand quality attributes, things like usability, security, portability, maintainability, those characteristics that make the difference between a product that just does what it's supposed to and a product we actually like to use. Okay, we need to identify our stakeholders. Sometimes you think, well, here's the user. Well, there's never the user. There are different kinds of users, and there are other stakeholders who might have needs, but they also might have constraints we have to be aware of. So understanding and characterizing our stakeholders is very important. We need a common vocabulary, so let's create a glossary, a simple thing. But that makes sure that when you say a word, I understand that word to mean the same thing, at least in the context of our product.
So that we all know what we are talking about. That was something that a moment ago has popped up several times. Communication having common terms. In QA, in tech, we tend to call some things different names, different places.
Right.
Or the same thing has all sorts of different names, or all sorts of different things with a single name. It's a mess out there.
It's a mess. So let's write that down so that we can all look it up and understand things in the same way. And then once you have requirements and the project's underway, life happens to you. Things change. And so we have to do some requirements management practices. And one of those, of course, is just dealing with change. It's a reality, and you need an effective way to do that without disrupting all of our other projects or work. But we also need to get into the habit of defining a baseline. A baseline is just an agreement that says, for this next development cycle, however long that is, or for this next period of time, here's what we plan to do. Okay, so the people who need to get the product, the people who are planning the product work, and the people who are doing it all have to reach an agreement, a commitment that says, here's what we're planning to do, so that we can make changes against that baseline in some sensible, non-disruptive way.
Yeah, because that's another one that from the waterfall days, I remember was a big struggle. Like, it's set in the project plan and it's movable. We have that.
And we all know that's silly. It just doesn't work that way. So let's not pretend that it does. But let's not go to the other extreme and just say, oh, well, we'll just build something because we can always change it later. That's expensive.
Yeah, because we're agile. We don't document, design, think of things. No, there's like...
that's a very bad approach.
We got to be like in the middle ground of rightness and, I don't know, to be strict and very hard-headed. Like, no, we want to move like some sort of flexibility, but don't go crazy with it.
Well, I'll give you an example. All right? I'm kind of old. And what happens as you get older is you realize that either extreme position is almost always silly.
Yeah.
Almost everything belongs somewhere in the middle. where we recognize the value and the shortcomings of this position or that position. So either extreme position generally is not going to be very successful for you.
And
the world is made of shades of gray.
Yeah. No. And it's always when you are asked QA or in many other areas, what is the solution for this? It's always, it depends. It's a gray area here and there, and don't fall for dogmas or like the commandments of the QA.
No, you can start with some principles. You can start with some this is how we usually do things, some guidelines. This is what usually works, but then you have to adjust to fit the specific reality, which is why sometimes people don't like to be told, well, it depends, but that's the correct answer in most questions. And the next thing you do is say, let's think about it. Let's try to do some analysis here. Let's understand the problem. Let's consider the possibilities. Let's consider risk.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll think about what makes the most sense in this situation.
Because in so many of those situations where you answer that it depends, I love how you phrased it, like, okay, you hate the answer, let's think about it.
Right.
Let's because many want just the recipe, like what are the steps?
Well, that's easy.
And it's silly, like in a recipe talking about cooking, it's like use your heart and how, but here's yours, use your mind and analyze things, right?
Even when I'm cooking, and I like to cook, so I do almost all of our cooking. I regard recipes as starting points.
Yeah.
It's like, if you follow this recipe, you'll get a more or less predictable outcome, but I do a lot of substitutions. I'll say, I don't want that much fat.
Sometimes you didn't get the exact ingredient, the brand that the recipe book had, and you have one that is a little bit.
Or you try something, you say, this calls for a lot of butter, but I'm going to put in half that much butter, and I'm going to put in an avocado all mashed up to get the fat.
I'm getting like these sparkles of ideas. And when you have like those perspectives in QA as well, not only in cooking, I mean, you can create awesome things, delicious things when you get a little bit creative there, or analyze things, because it's from the heart in cooking, yeah, but you're also with your brain like,
sure, what makes sense?
What goes well with this? It's
right. Or things like, okay, I make cookies. I like sweets. So maybe I make cookies, but to try to make them a little bit better for me and still be good, maybe I'll replace half of the white flour with whole wheat flour or soy flour. A little more protein, they're still fine. A little bit different, but you do it with a goal in mind. What am I trying to accomplish?
That's another one where you're thinking about yourself, your end user. I am gonna get my sweet cookie that I am craving,
but it's going to be better for me.
I'm gonna try to do it fit for me.
Yes.
And you're also giving this huge recommendation so that it's fit for our end user, our customer, whoever. And when you were saying functionally it delivers, but at the same time, I want something that is useful for them. And I would say that's a big difference that I noticed, like when we had Windows Media Player. It could connect to a stream server and you could watch, but that's a difference from Windows Media Player to YouTube. That, okay, it's just swipe a little bit and watch some of the stuff that you're interested. What happened, I remember having a Windows phone when there wasn't even an iPhone around. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm a tech person. I was the only one that knew how to use that. Wait, you use Outlook to send an SMS? Like, yeah, it's cool. No, it's not cool. Then Steve Jobs comes and makes it usable, accessible. Like what people didn't know what they needed, but when they started using it, we're like, this flows. I'm happy with it.
And a lot of what I'm saying about requirements doesn't apply quite the same way to a brand new innovative product the world has never seen before, the way it does to building information systems or building products that are the next generation of an existing product. And that's what most people do. Not everybody is inventing iPhones.
Yeah.
Right. Not everybody is inventing an app, and there's never been an app like that before.
But it doesn't have to be like never before a breakthrough. But as you're saying, adequate and what your end user, your end goal, because it's not only like I'm gonna be the one eating the cookie. Probably just need to put together a kitchen that is pleasant to me, that is functional.
Right.
And that's true as well when you say a data migration or some things that are not, there's no user back there. But we also have to think a little bit further into what is what are the deals, the requirements, true requirements, because it's not just move data from A to B. Okay, I can just tear the hard drive and put it on the other B, and that would work.
Where's the value added come from, and how do we know when we've accomplished it? What are we really trying to achieve? And that's what business objectives are about. It's like if you're just porting it, just plugging in the old data, that's one thing. But if you're restructuring, cleaning up the data to provide more value, to be more efficient, to provide greater growth capability, to meet future needs we haven't fully anticipated, then you do something a little bit different than just unplugging it and plugging it in over
Copy
here.
paste and moving all the files. No, and you have a very good point. Probably you identify, let's do a data transformation here. Let's separate and do some atomicity on the data because this table was taking too long.
Right.
Why don't we make it well? Or even some processes, it's not just copy and paste, because what is the process that we are going to be using to transport the data? How are we going to validate that it comes through?
How do we make sure we didn't miss anything, lose something, corrupt something?
Exactly, that we changed everything and now it's unusable and our end goal was not acquired.
And how do we protect the integrity and security of the data along the way?
Security as well. Yeah, are we printing it on papers and dragging it all open with our public records or all that stuff? Yeah. It's a big perspective, and you are giving a lot of insights. People try to look behind just the requirement or try to land the requirement with all the, you were showing a lot of elements around it. It's a holistic practice to put a requirement together, right?
Yeah, there is, because there's the statement of a requirement, the system shall do this or the user shall be able to do that. But behind that, in a third dimension, there's more information, like who requested that requirement? Why are we doing it? What's the origin of it? Where did it come from? What's its status today? Is it implemented? Is it approved? Or has it been canceled or deferred to a later release? What's its priority? So these are all requirement attributes. So they're characteristics of the requirement, metadata really, about the requirement that go beyond the statement of do this. How are we going to validate it? Just as we were talking about with like a data migration. So I think people need to think in terms of that other dimension of knowledge about each requirement. So for example, I think if any time someone comes to a business analyst and says, now, why are we doing this? Someone should have a good answer. So we need to know the origin, the rationale. Fred asked for it. Who's Fred and why do I care?
What's the deal with Fred?
Right.
I love that perspective. All the knowledge, all the descriptions, and I feel like you like people to push themselves and to kind of like, don't take it as a dogma. Use the brain and do all your QA, IT, and in general, cookies and finding shapes of devices. I look forward to that book. I'm very curious. That and the novel. And well, everyone, we are already extended a little bit here as well. It always happens, you know me. But having so much fun with Karl and talking about all these elements that it's amazing. I am truly honored, humbled of all what you have done, all the books that you have published.
My wife has to talk to me every day. She doesn't seem honored at all.
Nah,
that's very kind of you. Thank you.
No, I really, no, it's an honor to be like standing with a figure here that saw the technology happen. You were helping people. 600 something talks. I'm still like, oh my God, I tip my hat off. And it's always cool to have to meet a figure to kind of look up to and like, I want to be like that when I grow up.
Thank you. That's very kind.
No,
we've all had figures like that in our lives that we found just kind of really gave us a different way of thinking that was helpful.
No, and not that only the different way of thinking, but providing the help, providing the tools, providing books, talks, and all sorts of papers and stuff.
In fact, at my website, processimpact.com, I have links to many of my articles. I have dozens of articles. I have a medium.com account with over 100 articles on it.
That's where I was getting to. So where can people find your articles, get in touch with you? First, the website.
Yeah, so my company is Process Impact, 2 words. And processimpact.com is the website for the company. So that talks about the trainings that I've got available. And many of my articles are available there as well on a variety of topics. Medium.com, if you go in and search for my name, or certainly LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, have quite a bit of content there. And my personal website is, surprisingly, karlwiegers.com. So that talks about my books, and well, so does Process Impact. Talks about my various books, and also kind of a fun thing on karlwiegers.com. I like to record songs. I play guitar. And
on top of that, you're a musician.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I like to record songs just for fun. I'm not a professional. I'm not a good singer, but I don't let that stop me. It's just for
Cool.
fun. So I do all the instrumental parts and the vocal parts. Maybe you get a friend to help once in a while. And so I've got about 18 songs on there that I wrote, originals, and all the rest are covers. And I just find it a really good creative outlet and learning opportunity. So I have about 60 songs on my website right now.
Oh, wow.
It's just for fun.
So do you record each track or instrument separately, then you put
Yeah.
everything together?
So I'll play, well,
Cool.
for example, I just recorded 3 songs by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Cool.
And there's a song called Running Down a Dream, has 7 guitar parts. And I use different guitars, different amplifiers and stuff, and I just record the tracks one at a time, and then I do the vocal tracks, and I program the drums. I don't play drums, I program them in the software.
Oh, that stuff, if you're not used to.
Right, and I play bass and I don't really play keyboards, but I can fake it enough to make it sound about right. So then it's just really fun to put all the pieces together and make a song. And I try to reproduce the original song as accurately as I can. I'm not doing my own spin on it as a cover. I just try to, how close to that can I come? That's what I try to do. It's just a nice creative outlet and learning opportunity.
I'm going to look forward to that, and I'll take a look, because it makes me smile to see all the details, the cooking, the music, technology, helping people. Again, it's such an honor, Karl. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks very much.
I really love
appreciate
it.
your time.
Having had an opportunity. Everyone, there you have it. Karl, superstar here at PNSQC, and why you should keep coming to these conferences and meet these amazing gurus, rock stars, and chefs almost, and writers.
Normal people too.
On top of that, he thinks he's normal people. Wow. No, you're awesome, man. So stay tuned, because this is not over. We're still in the presence of lots of amazing gurus here. Stay tuned, because I checked 2:15 Portland time. We're going to be streaming Jonathan Wright's talk. We're going to have so much interactions. Come and join us, because you'll be able to send some questions, I believe. I'm still not sure what Jonathan is planning, but I'm definitely going to help him. So stay tuned. Karl, again, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure. And with that, we're going to cut it out for now, and we'll be back soon. With that, Leandro out, and Karl out, and adios.
Bye-bye.